Welcome back to a brand new episode of the A Game. I'm Lucas Warren.
I'm Ryan Hendricks.
And I'm Nick Goodman.
App State men's basketball has been off to a great start to the year, sitting at 15-4 overall. So what are your thoughts on the men's team, and what do you expect from them during the remainder of the season?
I mean, App State's gotten off to a fantastic start to the year. They haven't had a start like this in 35 years, which is crazy. I mean, a big part of that, I think, is just because they've maintained their defense that they had last year. They're the best team in the Sun Belt in forcing offenses to be inefficient, and they're the best scoring defense in the whole Sun Belt. But I think part of it too was also their offense. Even though they're not the best shooting team still, they've really started to push the pace more. They've started to try to get good shots quickly, and that's really paid off for them. I also feel like some of the new players they brought in have really fit in well with the team, whether it's Jordan Marsh, who as a freshman has been one of the fastest players on the team. He's been a really good spark plug player off the bench, whether it's Miles Tate, who's been really good offensively. He's been our best facilitator off the bench too, and he's also played better as we've gotten into conference play. Or it could be Trayvon Spillers, who I believe has been the best player on the team coming out of community college. I mean, in Sun Belt Conference play, this guy has been killing it. He's averaging 16 points and 9 rebounds on 68% shooting from the floor. That is ridiculous numbers from someone who hadn't been playing D1 basketball at all. So App State, the rest of this year, I expect them to continue to be a really good team. And as long as they don't run into other teams that just come out red hot from 3-point range, I feel like they have a chance and could very easily win the Sun Belt.
Yeah, Nick, I'm with you. I love how this team's been playing so far this year. Not been our best shooting performance this year that we've had all the time.
No.
Not shooting well at all, shooting around 30% from three, and we're not good from the stripe either. You foul us, you might be able to get a couple hack-a-shacks in on us. But I just love the way this team uglies up games. Just gets them down in these low-scoring affairs. You're down there back and forth. And Nick, you made a great point on the transfers in. Trayvon Spiller. There's something about these JUCO guys coming to App State. They always ball out. And well, the guy I like the most, Miles Tate, coming over from Butler, he's just been an amazing facilitator for this team up there, challenging Xavier Brown for that starting spot. But I love having two guards that can both defend really well coming off the bench and starting.
Yeah, I agree with what both of you said. You look at the good, and like what Nick said, this defense is legit. They're 13th in the country in allowing points at 63 a game. They hold teams to just 36% shooting. That's second in the nation, and they're first in blocks, tied with another school, but at 7 a game. They really just protect the rim. They're huge. They start Trayvon Spiller and Justin Abson, and having CJ Huntley off the bench. Those are three guys that can protect the rim and just really enforce on the defensive end, and they know how to play. They play in transition, they play quickly, they score off their defense. What I'm scared of is the shooting. The best shooter on the team is Christopher Mantis at 36%. There's really not another guy at above 30%. If we run into a team that's just red hot shooting from three, we might lose that game. So a little scary, but the defense is legit.
Well, let's head over to the gridiron because the NFL is down to 4 remaining teams. The Ravens, Chiefs, Lions, and 49ers. What do you thought of the playoffs so far, and who do you expect to come out on top?
Yeah, I mean, this playoffs has been great. You look at the divisional round, a team like Houston being led by CJ Stroud. My big takeaways from that game is just what play from CJ Stroud. I mean, that's a guy that you know is going to be running that franchise for 10 plus years. There's so many plays just asked to just create on third and longs, make a play, and he did so. But that Ravens defense is scary. It's the only defense to hold CJ Stroud without an offensive touchdown this year. In both games they played, he scored a touchdown in every other game against every other defense. And he was great against the Browns defense, which was right up there with the Ravens. But the Ravens are just that much different. They look primed to take it. But yeah, you just look all over the league, and the NFC right now with the Ravens and the Chiefs about to face off. Just what quarterback play from the Kansas City Chiefs with the Bills. The Bills definitely have a problem, but I don't think it's within them. It's a Patrick Mahomes problem. You're running into the same guy every year, and I don't think there's much wrong with the team. I wouldn't make many changes. I just think you got to keep going, but against a guy like Mahomes, there's not much you can do.
Yeah, just going off of what Lucas said about Buffalo, man, I feel really bad for that team. They've have a really talented team, and it really felt like this year was gonna be the year they would break through. They had things line up perfectly for them. They finally got that home game against Kansas City, and they just made a few too many mistakes, whether it was drop passes on some deep balls from Josh Allen missing a couple of throws, or at the end of the game missing a field goal wide right again to eliminate them from the playoffs. But I will say too, I'm really excited for this Detroit team. just seeing them finally break through and not only win a playoff game for the first time since 1991, but to go all the way to the NFC Championship game. I love seeing what Dan Campbell has done with this Lions team, but if I'm being honest, the Ravens and the Niners, I have been the class of the NFL this year. I don't see that changing. I felt like the Niners, if they were going to lose before the Super Bowl, it would have been that Packers game where Green Bay jumped out in front of them and played better than them through most of the game. I don't think they'll play that poorly again. So I do feel like it is still going to be the Ravens with that strong defense, with Lamar Jackson playing MVP football and a super talented 49ers team in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I've been very excited how the Ravens have been playing so far these playoffs. And they showed the last game. You saw C.J. Stroud go out there and completely dot up the Browns with a defense we thought was very great all year long. Ravens completely shut them down. And Lamar is be able to just do whatever he can do on offense, be able to get it going. But the teams I have in the Super Bowl, I'm going to take the Lions to shop Brock Purdy. I like Brock Purdy, the quarterback. I don't think he's going to get it done versus the Lions. And then Pat Mahomes is great, but I got the Ravens coming out on top.
All right, switching from NFL football to college football. App State won over the Miami Redhawks in the Cure Bowl with a final score of 13-9. What are your final thoughts on the Mountaineers football season, and what do you expect in the offseason?
Yeah, I really liked how we played at the end of the year. About midway through the season, right after the Old Dominion loss, I'd say, we were all out on Coach Sean Clark. We thought he was one loss away from getting fired, and if we didn't turn it around versus Southern Miss in that game, he was probably seeing the door. But just what Sean Clark has done, and I just love the way he's able to build this team up. Just keep digging, the mantra. And it doesn't matter. You don't have to play your best game every time, but you still come out there and win. James Madison, we had a tough game down at the end. We started choking away the lead, still came out on top. And for the bowl game, it wasn't pretty. It was very ugly throughout the whole game. 13 fumbles, 5 fumbles lost. But we still were able to come out on top. Just however you get it done. And going into next season, I think it's going to be a bit tough for us, especially because we're losing that interior O-line. We saw the interior line might be the reason we won that bowl game with guys like Isaiah Helms, Damian Daly on the inside. But both those guys are leaving in there, so it's going to be hard to replace those guys. And we might have mentioned it before, but losing guys like Tyreek Funderburk and Nick Ross, it is very tough to replace those guys. We got some guys coming in. Jason Chambers from NC Central, I think it's going to be solid. But it's going to be an adjustment to start.
Yeah, I think people forget that going into this year, a lot of Sunbelt teams and people who watch the Sunbelt thought of App State as a rebuilding team. They were a team that was disappointing the year before, and we came in, I believe we were placed to finish somewhere in the middle of the Sunbelt. And you said it, we were not doing good after that Norfolk loss in to Old Dominion. But you go on that win streak at the end of the year, you beat a team like JMU in Harrisonburg. And it was just a team that believed in their coach, believed in the message, believed in each other. And it's a team that's going to get better next year. You have a quarterback returning that broke the passing yards and touchdowns record at App State in Joey Aguilar. You have his top receiver coming back in Caden Robinson. You have Anderson Castle coming back from injury. He played so well down the stretch. I think the sky's the limit for this team. I think they could really do a lot in the Sun Belt, and I think this is a year that maybe, with the playoffs, you never know what team will get that last slot. Maybe they'll sneak in and get that group of 5 spot.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Lucas just said. I mean, it looked like App State was in a really rough spot during the year, even through the halfway point, maybe even the 3/4 point of the Southern Miss home game, where it looked like they would lose that game and miss out on a bowl. Ever since that fourth quarter and the rest of the year, they just turned around and played some really good football the rest of the year, and concluding that with a bowl win in a monsoon bowl with all those fumbles. But they were able to still beat the MAC champions in order to be bowl game champions. Next year, though, they have a chance to be great. They're going to get Joey Aguilar back. Even though losing Nate Noel to Missouri hurts, they're still going to have Kanye Roberts, who played well, and then most of the defense and the special teams are going to be back. So this team could be really good next year.
That's the big thing. That defense was young this year. Now they're going to be experienced coming back. But stay where you are. When we get back, we'll hear from Andrew and Chris.
Life is a journey. We're told that there are mountains and valleys before us. A mountaineer trudges through. Where others see an obstacle, a mountaineer sees an opportunity. A mountaineer climbs tomorrow's mountains today. So what is a mountaineer? A mountaineer is you.
Hi, my name is Melissa Weddle, and I'm Department Chair of Recreation Management and Physical Education at Appalachian State University. We offer 2 degree-granting programs, one in recreation management with a focus in outdoor experiential education, recreation and park management, and commercial recreation and tourism. Our second degree-granting program in health, physical education, and coaching offers teacher certification for public schools in health and physical education. You can get a minor or certificate in coaching. We are the front porch to the Beaver College of Health Science, where our focus is on quality of life, wellness, and physical activity. We're located in the beautiful mountains of Boone, North Carolina, so come join us, check out our website, or take a class.
Welcome back to the A Game. I'm Andrew Travers.
And I'm Chris Tora. App State has welcomed several key transfers to the program the last couple of weeks. Which additions stand out the most to you?
Well, to me, the most standout addition to me is Miles Farmer. He's a safety coming from Syracuse University. He has recorded 130 career tackles, 73 of those being solo tackles, and 4 interceptions and 8 pass breakups throughout his career as a safety. He may fit in well as a free safety for the Mountaineers. He fits a very hybrid skill set that App State is wanting to implement within their defense. This new star position, as the Mountaineers are going to call it, is going to be effective in pass coverage and a player that tackles well in open space. So I feel like he is a very good player to fit that mold.
And out of all the transfer students so far that's coming here to App State's program, which ones can you see needing a little bit more time to get on their feet?
Well, I would say Charles Wright. He's a transfer quarterback from Texas. Of course, he's probably going to back up Joey Aguilar, as Joey Aguilar is going to remain the starter for App State next season. He has been compared to Mason Fine, who was the former quarterback at North Texas. And it's really big when he was compared to him because Mason Fine is the all-time leading passer in program history for the North Texas Mean Green. And he shows flashes of impressive accuracy and touch on deep throws, both outside the numbers and in the red zone. So I think he can learn very well from Joey Aguilar. It's just when he will be able to move up to that point. But I could see him moving up to that point in about 2 seasons from now once Joey departs from the program.
So do you think App State will ever do like dual quarterbacks in situations in games where they take Joey Aguilar out and incorporate this new transfer quarterback coming in?
I think that's good to start the season. I feel like if Joey does get hurt, bringing in a guy like Charles Wright might be beneficial to the program just to see how that is. I know that was the case with Ryan Berger, bringing him in as the starter last season and putting in Joey Aguilar once he got hurt in that Gardner-Webb game. So I think they could try to do something like that with Charles Wright. It's just up to what Coach Sean Clark wants to do.
No, I completely 100% agree with you. And which kind of like receiver so far, App, because I've seen a couple players also have transferred out of App, and who's going to be like standing out to you the most this upcoming year, receiver-wise?
Yeah, so receiver-wise, I would say Milan Tucker, that's a big subtraction from this Mountaineer receiving core. He's heading off to FAU. He was really a breakout receiver for this Mountaineer program, and I think losing him might be a little bit of a retraction back. But I would say relying on receivers like Deshaun Davis would be probably beneficial to the Mountaineers without that threat of Milan Tucker out on the field. And then Nate Noel departing to Missouri. His NIL deal is valued at over $152,000, which is some big bank. He's going to go ball out for that Missouri team. But I would say relying on running backs such as Anderson Castle and getting some of those inexperienced guys involved with the App State running attack will really benefit them going into next season when you play teams such as Liberty at home.
Oh, 100% agree. And where do you give App transfer so far? Like, what grade do you give App so far with who they brought in?
I would say about a 3. All of these players that they brought in are all considered 3-star prospects. So I would say probably a 3-star for these incoming transfers for the Mountaineers.
Cool.
The NBA season has reached its halfway point, with the season being highlighted by a competitive MVP race and surprising teams. What has caught your attention so far, Chris?
Of course, the last night was huge games from Karl-Anthony Towns and Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid dropped 70, 15, and 5, and Karl-Anthony Towns, I believe, dropped, 64, 65? And so those were big performances from big men from their respective teams. And Joel was the reigning MVP, so I think that's a really big kind of pillar because the 76ers haven't been making, deep runs into the playoffs, and having their big man taking this type of leap is a huge deal.
I think it was big that Karl Anthony Towns scored 62 in that game against the Hornets. I know, granted, the Hornets came back and won that game, and they relied on players such as Miles Bridges, Terry Rozier, who will soon get traded to the Miami Heat. So I think that was a big statement win for the Hornets, not to overshadow Karl Anthony Towns' scoring performance, but I do think the Hornets did step up and played really good team basketball, and that's something that we really haven't seen from them so far this season. Like, they've been on a really roller coaster. They've had a really roller coaster performance thus far this season, only having less wins on their roster than most other teams. So I think that was a big statement win from the Hornets, despite Karl Anthony Towns' scoring performance.
No, 110%, because anytime when the player scores 62, they're rolling in the game, they're in the zone, and the other team gets kind of flustered on who they're going to throw at that guy. So the fact that the Hornets rallied around each other, especially like you were saying before, Terry Rozier was getting traded. He played in that game, but didn't have a really good performance. He was like 0 for 6 for 3 with like 11 points. So the fact that the Hornets were able to pull this off is a really big deal. And kind of, what do you think went wrong for the Timberwolves for that collapse?
Yeah, I feel like team basketball just wasn't on point for them. I feel like their ability to stay in the game was there. I know Karl Anthony Towns, while he did have a great scoring performance, he missed a game-winning buzzer beater 3 to send the game into overtime. And I think that was just the missing element. They did everything else right, but just their execution at the end of the game really didn't impress me. And I think that's what ultimately made them lose that game.
No, 100% as well. And we were also talking a little bit too that we saw that like there were missed calls at the end of that game as well. That could have definitely kind of changed the trajectory of that game towards the end. So there was like 10 missed calls. So I believe that, having the refs step in and kind of having them kind of dictate 10 missed calls is kind of a lot for a game like that. So what are your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how they handled that. I know that news just broke today, and it's going to be interesting to see how they handled that. 10 missed calls is a little extreme in my opinion. To have the refs miss in a game. So it's definitely going to be interesting what the officiating crew for the NBA does when they go back and review this game, how they're going to handle those missed calls, and what backlash they'll receive from both fans and coaches alike from both organizations.
No, absolutely. And another surprising team that I'm looking out for is the Clippers. They're 27-14. They're 18-4 at home and 9-10 at away, averaging 117 points per game. And 8-2 in the last 10 games. Do you think the Clippers are up on a highward spiral right now, or do you think this is just overhyped from the media right now with how they've been playing so far?
Yeah, Chris, I think it's a little too early to tell. At least from my opinion, where the Clippers stand right now. We've seen how they've been in past seasons where they've had the talent, they've had the superstardom on their team, but they haven't been able to finish the job in the playoffs. For example, during the COVID-shortened season, they were trying to make a run at the Western Conference Finals. Of course, players don't stay healthy, they get hurt like Kawhi Leonard, and they ultimately end up losing to the Phoenix Suns. So I think it's a little too early to tell based on health of players and just where they'll stand at the end of the season, but they are on an upward trajectory. It's just too early to tell if they'll be able to make a playoff run.
No, I agree as well. I just hope that, the Clippers' one key ingredient is going to be the health key. If they can stay healthy, I think this team with the experience and the veteran leadership on that team can definitely get to the Western Conference Finals at least.
Stay where you are. When we get back, we'll hear from Cody and Hunter for the weekly rundown.
What brings us to mountains? Is it the possibilities that await us at the top? Are we looking forward to how the challenge will mold us, transform us? Maybe the mountain is inside all of us. After all, we are mountaineers. Appalachian State University.
Welcome back to the A-Game. Cody, kick us off with this week's rundown.
The Carolina Panthers offseason coaching hunt continues after Frank Reich was fired midway through the season. This is one of the best head coaching candidates classes in NFL history, with names such as Bill Belichick and Jim Harbaugh on the board. The Panthers have shown interest in Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson and Ravens defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald, among others. Carolina has set up a second interview with the Panthers' current defensive coordinator, Ejiro Evero. Do you have a favorite for the Panthers' next head coach?
I do have a favorite, Cody, and that's Ben Johnson. I also love Bobby Slowick from the Texans, and Mike McDonald as well for the Ravens. I think this weekend with the Ravens facing the Chiefs would be a big moment for Mike McDonald to really get a hold of me.
Yeah, I like Mike McDonald and that defense at Baltimore a lot. They've held 3 Kyle Shanahan offenses to under 20 points, including the 49ers. But I'm moving with Ben Johnson a little bit. You got a rookie quarterback. I like the offensive guy.
As the NFL playing season winds to a close, draft season is starting to pick up. The top 2 mock draft makers, Mel Kiper and Daniel Jeremiah, have released their first mocks of the first round. Both have USC quarterback Caleb Williams going first overall to the Chicago Bears, followed by UNC quarterback Drake May and LSU quarterback Jayden Daniels for the next 2 spots, but flipped up a little bit. But there are still a lot of questions out there. Do the Bears need to draft a quarterback with Justin Fields on the roster? What about the Commanders with Sam Howell? Where's Marvin Harrison going to go? I don't know, but looking at these 2 mocks, where do you see these 2 guys going? If not, what's your order?
All 3 of the teams at the top need a quarterback. If you're talking about the Bears, Justin Fields is good, but you don't want to miss a guy like Caleb Williams, who's generational. And then Sam Howell, I think Drake May's a little better. And then Mac Jones doesn't really have a huge future as a starter, in my opinion.
I'm changing it up a little bit. I think Jayden Daniels will go 3 to the Pats. I think Drake May will go 2 to the Commanders. But I think the Falcons are going to trade up, and I think they're going to take Caleb Williams. They need a franchise quarterback. The Bears already have a franchise guy, and then they'll get those 2 back-to-back picks later on in the draft.
Be a huge move for a new coach. Charlotte Hornets guard Terry Rozier is heading to Miami as the Heat send Kyle Lowry and a future first-round pick to the Hornets in return. Terry Rozier's having his best scoring season yet, averaging over 23 points per game on 46% shooting from the field. Kyle Lowry is on the final season of a 3-year, $85 million contract. Do you like this trade for Charlotte?
I do. Unfortunately, I hate to see a guy like Terry Rozier go, but honestly, how many more wins are the Hornets going to get without him? And we get Kyle Lowry, whether we trade him or not, he can play the rest of the season. And then we get that pick. It might not be a high one, but hey, draft capital is draft capital.
You hate to see Terry Rozier go, but he deserves a place where he can shine as he's kind of in his prime towards the tail end of it, I think. And Miami's going to get a great scorer, which they need at the guard position. Hornets get a pick, look to the future, and it's an expiring contract which will free up some cap.
2-time Major League Baseball MVP Shohei Ohtani decided to take his talents down Interstate 5 from Anaheim to Los Angeles, California this offseason, signing a 10-year, $700 million contract with the Dodgers. The move turned even more heads when the details came out that Ohtani is going to defer as much as $68 million a year for the first half of the contract to the back half, allowing the Dodgers to make even more signings to bolster this roster. Which brings the question, how many rings can the Dodgers get during Ohtani's decade tenure?
It could be a lot, especially in those first 5 years. Shohei Ohtani, arguably maybe the best player of all time in the MLB, and with the contract structured the way it is, it has to be in the first 5 years, I think.
I'm going to say it right here, 2. Because Ohtani is not going to pitch this year because he got his second Tommy John surgery. And then the back half of that contract, all those deferrals have got to come around sometime. And if that happens, it could really cripple that roster.
Back to the court, in a blockbuster women's college basketball game last weekend, Ohio State beat the number 2 ranked Iowa Hawkeyes in overtime. The big win for OSU came behind Cody McMahon's 33 and JC Sheldon's 24. After the game, Caitlin Clark collided with a fan as Ohio State students stormed the court. Hunter, was this true contact worthy of a foul, or are you calling it a flop from Caitlin Clark?
It was a little bit Oscar-worthy, I'm not going to lie, but she did it solely on purpose? Maybe not. I think there was a lot of stuff going on. She just had the loss, and she was probably really surprised by the fan, and then maybe she just kind of sold it just a little bit.
Looking at it in real time, that draws a foul in the NBA. Took the contact, went down, sold it well, enough to knock you back and shock you, but the spin all the way around, that might have been LeBron Embiid worthy. Gotta respect it though, trying to get the call.
At the conclusion of his 12th season as the New England Patriots head coach, Bill Belichick and the organization he brought 6 Super Bowls to have decided to part ways. Belichick leaves the team holding a 333 wins to 178 losses as the head coach, netting him only 14 wins behind Don Shula for the most all time. Looking at where he go, many want him there, but some are saying that maybe Tom Brady was most of the success that he had there because Bill had a below 500 record without Tom Brady. So Cody, was it Tom that got Bill all that success, or was it him himself?
I won't say Brady was the reason it happened. Belichick built a really, really good team that was good for a lot of years with Brady, but Brady was a bigger part of the rings. I don't want to take too much from Belichick by saying Brady was the bigger part, but I think that's been proven enough.
I think Tom needed Bill. I think Bill needed Tom. Of course, Tom didn't coach all those great defenses that Bill had, so I think they needed each other, and I think that's why they had so much success.
Hunter, let's talk about another huge change in football. After 17 years at Alabama, Nick Saban is retiring from coaching. Saban is in the top 10 in all-time wins by a college head coach. He's won 11 SEC championships and 7 national championships, while being named the SEC Coach of the Year 5 times. Alabama ended their football season with a loss to Michigan in the Rose Bowl. Now, Kalen DeBoer takes over for the Crimson Tide after taking Washington to the playoffs. Do you like the hire?
I do like the hire, but I'm going to speak to some Alabama fans now. If you think it's going to be immediate success right there with DeBoer, it's not going to happen. There's going to be a transition period. It might be some rough years, but once DeBoer starts getting his guys in, he already showed that he can have a team at a high level and take them to the national championship. So just wait around, and I think it would work out.
I agree with you. I think DeBoer in time will be fine. He got the best out of his guys every time he plays, every time he coaches. The thing is, he's been a bit of a journeyman, hasn't spent much time at each team, so we don't know how he recruits. A lot of that recruiting that made Bama Bama was Bear Bryant and was Nick Saban.
Love that, Cody. Let's look at the NBA. NBA superstar Kevin Durant recently stirred up a conversation surrounding himself and the never-ending greatest of all time discussion. Usually dominated by players like Michael Jordan and LeBron James, Durant asked, "Why shouldn't I be in? What haven't I done?" when asked about his placement. He's top 10 all-time in points scored, he has an MVP, he's won 2 rings, 2 finals MVPs, and he's a 13-time All-Star. So, is KD valid in his argument to be in the discussion?
KD is not valid in that argument. And when he's talking about it, he says, what haven't I done? What hasn't he done? He hasn't won multiple MVPs. Everyone else in the conversation has. LeBron has, MJ has, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has. He failed to win a ring without another top 5 player on their roster. That's fine. That can be the case, and you can still be really good. But not in the GOAT discussion. He's also never been on an NBA all-defensive team. The other guys have when we've talked about them. Let's move into the octagon now. Over the weekend, Dricus du Plessis beat Sean Strickland in the middleweight title fight via split decision, stripping Strickland of the belt. Dana White said after that he actually thought Strickland beat du Plessis, but isn't going to book an immediate rematch. Do you think du Plessis winning was the right decision by the judges?
I just wish the judges would just nail it down a little better. Strickland had 183 to 140 win in strikes, and I look at that and I think that's better. So do I think Strickland should have won? Maybe a little bit, but I just think things need to be ironed out a little bit more.
I have to disagree with you a bit. Takedowns have to matter a decent amount. It is mixed martial arts. Now, wrestling, I agree, shouldn't be everything, but du Plessis dominated on the ground. He had 6 takedowns to Strickland's 0. He dominated. He controlled every single second of that fight. That was wrestling. You can be striking focused, but to be a UFC champ, you can't have an embarrassing performance in a single facet of your fight, and that's what he had. I think that's enough where you have to give him the win.
I love those points, Cody. I think we can agree to disagree. In a shocking turn of events, the Milwaukee Bucks fired their head coach, Adrian Griffin. Griffin was in his first year as the head coach of the Bucks, coaching them to a 30-13 record and the current 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, only 3.5 games back from the 1 seed Celtics. Cody, what's going on in Milwaukee?
It's so bizarre for a contender to do this at this point in the season when they are as good as they are. They're the 3rd best team in the NBA. It's super strange to make this decision now. There's some stats that point at a coach that aren't great for the Bucks. The Bucks are currently, they have a bottom 6 defense, they're bottom 10 in opponent second chance points, they're bottom 10 in turnovers, but a lot of that with the defenses. Are you surprised that your defense got worse after you moved from Drew Holiday to Damian Lillard? It's interesting. Had to be more that happened behind closed doors than just how the team's performing. It's all the same, very, very weird to do right here in this situation as a contender halfway through the year.
Yeah, it kind of blows my mind, to be honest with you, because I think the best thing you need to be a contender, to be a championship team, is you need some cohesion. And how are you going to get cohesion when you fire your head coach halfway through the season? So I'm not going to solely just place it on the decision. There has to be some other stuff going on, because that's the only way that I could even start to explain this.
I agree. Great points, great discussion. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of The A-Game.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram at @TVInsta.